In episode 4, everybody from Nikolai's family has arrived at the spinning wheel and they're all having a big party. They're all kind of wondering why Alina is sitting next to Nikolai. It gets a little bit awkward, and then they find out why when Nikolai announces that he and Alina are to be wed. This comes as a giant surprise to everybody in the room except Alina, Nikolai, and of course Maul, who has to watch. He also announces that Alina will now lead the Second Army, which is also a pretty big surprise. Even Zoya, who pledged her allegiance to Alina, is suddenly questioning why Alina Starkov should be leading the Second Army. She's willing to follow her, she just doesn't think the timing is right. I mean, she's only been Grisha for a year. So Alina definitely has her work cut out for her in managing this thing. As the Second Army starts talking about their new leader and what she lacks, Nikolai's mother starts talking about planning a party. It's not like Nikolai's mother is thrilled about this, but she wants to keep up appearances, and Nikolai tells her, just make sure it's a small affair. Alina and Maul are finally able to get some alone time to discuss this, and Maul isn't happy, because this alliance was to protect her, and now she's going to the front line. But as she points out, she's doing so to protect Grisha. Ravka is on the brink of civil war. She wants to stop it. Maul points out that if they want to help Grisha, what they need to do is focus on finding the Firebird. Find the Firebird, tear down the fold, and then the reason for the civil war all goes away. It's just a complete difference of opinions, and nothing's going to change, but Maul had to voice his displeasure with this decision. But what they're unaware of is this whole conversation is being watched by Vasily, Nikolai's half-brother, the one that's hell-bent on leading Ravka to a civil war. He sees the connection the two have, and he knows that this engagement is either fake or she's just two-timing his brother. He files this information away, and maybe he can find it useful for later. As the party, though, rages on, not too far away, Genya wakes up in a cage right next to Bagra, and she's as scarred up as Kirigan is. Actually, she's worse. Kirigan comes in and tells his cronies to take Genya away. He's going to make an example of her. And Bagra, who still doesn't have her finger, that's being rounded up so they can use it as an amplifier later, she sticks up for Genya, telling Kirigan that Genya's been loyal to him since she was a child, and now she's just made to be an example? She asks her son, when does this stop? And Kirigan says it stops when Ravka is mine and Alina is at my side. And the next day, Alina is training to take Kirigan down. She needs to harness her powers. She's getting help from Nadia and Tamar. She gets really good advice from Tamar that says, focus on a person you want to crush, and then use it to your advantage. And when Alina does that, she focuses on Kirigan, and it works. I mean, she destroys her target. She then, however, gets word that someone has arrived and they need to meet with her. And it's David. Tolya and Nikolai are very hesitant to believe anything this guy says. They have him chained up. But David has actually come here to help. He hands over Morozova's journal and apologizes for everything that he did to her, but assures her that he has no loyalty to Kirigan anymore. He warns her that Kirigan knows that she's in East Ravka. But when they ask David, all right, well, tell us where he is, he says, no, I can't do that, because that would be a very bad idea. And then he fills them in on the fact that this dude has 2 smoke monsters ready to kill anything in their way. Maul says, well, then how did you get away? And David says, that's because Genya sacrificed herself. Even after this story, Tolya and Nikolai are hesitant to believe him. They think he might be a spy. But they ultimately leave it up to Alina because she is in charge of the Second Army. After talking about it with Nadia, they decide to take David to a holding cell. Once everybody leaves, Maul and Alina talk alone. And while they don't fully trust David, they can't figure out why he would lie about such a thing. Maul says, if it is true, then I have to go hunt the Firebird right now. But Alina says, or I can do something right now, an alternative to boost my power. If he created Soldiers of Shadow, maybe I can create Soldiers of Light. Maul doesn't want to go down that road because the last time they messed with this, the fold popped up. So he says, just give me a little bit of time to find the Firebird. There's always a cost to Murzost. It's not worth the risk. After giving Maul the okay to go find the Firebird, she, along with Tamar, go and talk to David because deep down, Alina wants to know how Murzost works. And David says, no, I can't do that. You have to understand, Alina, that journal omits the most consequential detail, the cost. You're asking the wrong questions, although there is something you should know, and I don't want to mention this in front of the others. You and Kirigan are connected. While the bone fragment from the stag is out of his hand, bits of it still remain, and they bond you two. You're connected between those fragments. Kurgan knows this because he asked me if you two could be linked. And this has been something that Alina's feared because of her dreams. As Alina is getting this unsettling news, Maul has been hot on the case of the Firebird, and he thinks he has a lead. There's a legend about this relentless blade from Shu culture. Maul goes and talks to Tolia about it because Tolia's Shu. And Maul thinks that if they can find this legendary sword, they can use this to take down Kurgan, because his legend has it the blade was so sharp it could cut shadow. Tolia tells Maul the only problem with that is the one that's on display is rumored to be a fake. We would need to find the real one. And they go and talk to Nikolai because, of course, Nikolai was Sturmond. And Nikolai confirms that as Sturmond, he tried to get the sword, but he found out that it is indeed a fake. The real one was stolen long ago. He suspects it never left Shuhan, because if it had turned up in the black market, he would have heard about it. Nikolai does think that it's a long shot, but he also knows a perfect crew for the job, and they're in Ketterdam. Nikolai gives the okay for Tolia and Zoya to head to Ketterdam and try to get the crows on board. But Maul won't be heading there, because Vasily has him arrested for being a deserter. After giving this order, he goes and has a conversation with Alina, who's trying on wedding dresses, and he basically proposes to her, saying, I'm the only one who could make you a queen. But she turns him down, telling him that he hasn't hidden his feelings on Grisha. She honestly can't understand why he's bringing up this proposal. And he stands by his previous statements that the Ravkan people are fed up of being held hostage by Grecian tyrants. But he also realizes that some Grisha are good people. She, though, still turns him down, which he doesn't take too kindly, and he lets her know that as leader of the Second Army, the leader of the First Army being an ally is a pretty good idea. So she probably should consider this, and then he leaves. She doesn't truly consider it, though. Vasily's a jerk, and she continues to try on outfits. And a little while later, the guy she's actually marrying, Nikolai, comes by with a family heirloom. It's a wedding ring. She jokes how Nikolai's mother is not going to be pleased that he gave this to her, and that's why Nikolai lets her in on a little family secret. He's not actually a Lantsov. It's been long rumored, and he'll deny it if she ever brings it up, but he doesn't really care. She then points out that she can't stand Vasily. The throne to him is a prize, and she's noticed that Nikolai actually cares about Ravka. She tells him that he would actually make a good king. Unfortunately, that's never going to happen, though, because he's second in line. Vasily is first. They then walk hand in hand into their small party, and it's not small at all, it's huge. They start to get concerned because Kurgan knows that she's in East Ravka, and a party this size, the word's good to spread. Alina starts looking around for Maul, but she can't find him, and Nikolai just figures that he's running a little bit late. And that's when Vasily comes over and says, maybe your little friend doesn't share your enthusiasm for these festivities. But Alina doesn't take the bait, just excusing herself. She is, however, getting concerned because she knows that Maul wouldn't miss this. There's then a toast that's given by Vasily. It's pretty cringeworthy, but it's interrupted because their worst fears come true. Kurgan and his smoke monsters show up and start attacking this party. Bullets are no match, and Alina's powers are barely a match. They do notice a vulnerability in the smoke monsters. They have to be solid to attack the prey, but that's the only vulnerability they find. The group frantically starts looking for a way out, and that's when Alina sees Kurgan casually walk into the room. She goes and follows him down a hallway, and it's just Kurgan and Alina one-on-one. Alina tries to attack him, but it doesn't work. He disappears, and then he reappears. She now realizes that he lured her away from the party, and he says, "No, I lured you away to protect you. I'm here really just to kill the Lantsovs, but my creations are somewhat unpredictable." Adric finally finds Alina, but when he finds her, she's all alone. And that's because Kurgan is talking to her through their bond. He's not actually there. He gets Alina back on track to finding an exit, along with his sister Nadia and Tamar. But as they're doing so, they're attacked by Kurgan and his smoke monster. And this time, it's the actual Kurgan. It results in Adric getting really hurt. His arm is severely messed up. Kurgan tells Alina, "I have no intention of hurting you," but Alina, surprisingly, does not believe him. He begs her to join him. Together, they can rule side by side. But she tells him that is never going to happen. And at that, Kurgan turns to his smoke monster and says, "Have it your way," and gives the order to go attack. Alina uses her powers to put up a barrier and tells her friends to get the hell out of there. This leads to Alina and her friends narrowly escaping Kurgan and his monster. But as Kurgan was attacking this party, his mother and Genya were escaping. His mother used her own powers to get out of that cage. Genya fixed her fingers, and those two fled. Kurgan's attack did delay the trip to Ketterdam, where Kaz and his group were very successful on finally getting revenge on Pekka Rollins. Here's how they did it. That day was kind of a Halloween-esque celebration in Ketterdam, where people were wearing disguises. So Kaz sent the new group, Per Haskell's group, to Pekka Rollins' businesses and had them spray this liquid. The liquid would end up causing whoever touched it to look like they had firepox, but it would just wear off in a couple days, although in the moment you were convinced that firepox was back. Nina then brought Kaz to Pekka just like she was instructed to do, although she was in on this plan. Shortly after Kaz arrived, that's when people first started noticing that firepox was back, and Kaz said that it was only coming from Pekka's businesses. Pekka would end up taking the fall for this. Pekka, though, didn't really care, but what he did care about is when Kaz brought up his son. Kaz told Pekka that his son was currently buried alive, and unless he admitted to those murders which he tried to frame Kaz for, and unless he signed over Inej's freedom, they were never going to give up the location of his son. The fear works. Pekka admits to everything. He signs over Inej, and Kaz tells him that Albie is buried alive in the cemetery. He also tells Pekka why he's doing this. And what really infuriates Kaz is the fact that Pekka doesn't even remember his brother. But Kaz wanted Pekka to know why he was trying to ruin his life. When Pekka arrived at the cemetery, he didn't find his son, although the police were waiting for him to arrest him. And as he's being taken away, that's when little Albie shows up and sees his father in handcuffs. So yeah, it was very successful for Kaz and his group. It was so successful that a relationship formed out of it. Wylan and Jesper couldn't help the feelings, so it looks like they're going to be an item. But this also wasn't perfect. Inej had a part to play, but she ultimately abandoned it. She was supposed to spray that liquid on a ship that was specifically for Pekka's business, but when she overheard some voices, she recognized that they were women and she figured that they were headed to the menagerie. So instead of helping out this plan, she freed those women instead. And that really did piss off Kaz. He tells her that she was a weak link and he can't trust weak links. And then he hands over the signed form from Pekka and tells her, "You're free." Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.